Hey guys, today I'm going to be showing you how to install Joying's brand new, massive 10.1-inch Android 10 head unit into your E92 BMW. These run both Apple CarPlay and Android Auto natively, with the massive and ridiculously thin 1280 by 800 10.1-inch display. They have Bluetooth 5.1, powered by a new 1.8 GHz octa-core processor with 4 gigs of RAM and 64 gigs of storage, and have a new optical digital audio output. This is the second of 4 videos in the series, and today I'm going to be showing you how I installed it in my 2009 BMW 335i. As always, like this video, subscribe, and hit that bell icon. I'll be putting out both a quick take review as well as a deep dive review soon, so you'll definitely want to get a notification when those come out. Now, let's get to the installation. Installation on this head unit has been a little bit tricky. It is a universal head unit, and it has a very large screen, and so it has not fit that well in my BMW 335i. The E90 series BMWs have a fairly challenging dashboard to work with. It's recessed quite a bit and kind of an odd shape. So this has been a little bit difficult. I've had to get this Metra dash kit, and while it fits, it doesn't fit very well, and it's kind of a piece of crap, but it's the only one out there. It is this. It's the 95-9306B. The overall dimensions are wrong. These holes sit a good centimeter lower than they should, so you have to drill your own holes, as well as the placement in these brackets does not work very well for this head unit. So this is actually my second dash kit. As you can see, the first one has been an exercise in Swiss cheesing, trying to get my hole placements, but I have hole placements figured out and a new bracket. We're going to go ahead and drill those out using a 13/64 drill bit. You could go to 7/32, but this fits the head unit screws perfectly. Drilling through this plastic is really easy. I'm using a drill press, but you don't need to. You could use a hand drill. This just gives slightly better hole placement. But got my hole marked out. I'm gonna come in here and place my part and get it exactly where I want it. I've got my second hole marked out right here. I'm gonna go ahead and just make sure my placement's on, which it is, and we're gonna go run that hole through. As you can see, I managed to screw that up something fierce. I got that second hole way off, and I'm not entirely sure how I did that, but we're just gonna have to go ahead and make that hole a little bit bigger and try and compensate for the poor placement. This is probably the hardest part of this whole project, is modifying these brackets to fit, but that should be good enough. Now that we have the proper drill hole placement figured out in the one bracket, we're just going to mirror these and mark where we need our holes. And this is a little bit more difficult to drill out on the drill press because of the side. We can't lay it on this flat side, but that should just be the easiest way to match these things up. Got this thing lined up, just verify our placement, which should be good. That was the easy hole because we're able to set this over this slot right here. This other hole is a bit more difficult. I'm gonna have to go and let this hang off the side of the drill press table a bit because we can't fit it into any of those slots. Just go ahead and make sure that our bit clears. We don't want to hit the table. Got the placement figured out and fingers are out of the way, so give this a shot. Go ahead here and check the alignment, and that looks to be a whole lot better than the other side was. It's not completely perfect, but it should be good enough for what we're doing. Something that you need to be aware of is that these screws for the head unit aren't actually included with the head unit, and they're also not included with the dash kit. So you're gonna have to go and procure those on your own. I was able to find 3 in my stock of random bits, and then one that kind of sort of fits, not really. This will get changed out eventually, but for now, it's the best I've got. Make sure that the head unit is facing up as far as the orientation and placement of these goes, so the stickers are on the top, and this little tab here is also on the top. When you're putting these screws in, it is important to note to be very careful not to over tighten them, because you can pretty easily strip out the thin sheet metal that makes up the head unit body. This dash kit comes with a couple of these little white clips, and these clips mount onto these tabs. They just snap in place, like so. And then when you go ahead and mount this, the head unit will screw into the body of the car, and then this will just snap in. But another problem with this universal dash kit and this head unit, because of how far this needs to sit out to clear the dash, and the fact that this doesn't really do much to support anything, is that it does not clear. This trim right here does not quite clear the head unit, so I have to go ahead now and trim some of that out. Here is the previous dash kit that I had been working on to try and make everything fit. You can see the big cutouts that I've made. It's unfortunate that you have to do this, but it is what it is. Thankfully, in this case, we have a giant screen that covers the whole. As well, I'm not too concerned because this is a single DIN unit, and well, this is a double DIN dash kit, because that's all that there is. I could not find a single DIN dash kit for this car, so we work with what we got. I'm gonna use this as a little bit of a guide for where to start. Even though I don't need openings quite that big, this just makes it easier. I go with just some nippers here. I'm gonna cheat and use my Dremel with just a simple cutoff wheel. I know not everybody has one. When I was doing this one, I just used a utility knife and shaved stuff down as I went. The risk with this is being a little too aggressive and slipping. With that white clip removed, now we can pretty easily go and test fit this. And didn't need to be nearly that aggressive. We've had lots of different placements in the dash, which is why I have such an aggressive opening. But again, it's covered over, so I'm not particularly concerned. Because the placement of the HVAC controls that sit here are entirely dependent on the placement of these brackets, we need to move this whole assembly up a little bit. So we're gonna go ahead and do that by Dremeling out a little slot here so that we can adjust the placement of the screws. You gotta be very careful though not to take too much out, because then you'll cut this off and it's already fairly weak. I'm just using my Dremel here with a grinding bit to grind a little slot in there. For this particular installation in my E92 335i, the Metra dash kit that I'm using isn't very good, and the stereo is recessed pretty far back into the dash. So, having problems with the screen not coming out far enough, even after some modifications to the dash kit mounting brackets. So I've gone ahead and added roughly 9mm of spacers into the mounting tabs here. This is not a great solution. This is not going to be the most secure thing in the world, but it's the best I've got. I chose 9mm because Joying sells a spacer. They call it a stent. It's not something that I've been able to find on their website, so you'll probably have to ask them about it. I believe they quoted me $15 shipped to the United States. So we're going to go ahead and see if this fits well enough. Again, this is not a terribly secure solution, but it should get the job done. Okay, for installation, the first thing we have to do is we have to remove the air conditioning controls, and then from there we're going to have to remove the stereo. So this should be pretty easy. Just come in here and pop that side out. Come around to the other side. And pop that out as well. It should come on out. So then we've got the two connectors back here. So both of these are kind of got the locking lever. So as you can see this, there's a tab that you have to push down, and then this lever is able to slide, and it pops out. Same thing with this side. Push the tab down, slide that over, and it comes on out. This we'll set aside for now. It's going to require some modification later, but for now, it just gets set away. So next we have got two T20 bolts or screws that need to come out. So just pop those on out. So next, there are a pair of Phillips head screws right down here that hold in the factory head unit. Just go unscrew those. Magnetic screwdriver would be really helpful right now. So yeah, I'm just going to leave that there. So go ahead and pop that out. Careful not to lose our screws. And everything is wired in awfully tight. So as you can see, there's very, very little working room back there. But we're just going to go ahead and unplug everything. So the main harness here also has one of those sliding connector, rotating connectors. Take that, push the lever down, and it pops out. So because this isn't the logic unit, there is not much going on in there. So then we can take our stock head unit here and set it to the side. There are two more Torx T20s. I'll go ahead and remove those. Finally, there are two more Torx T20s in here. Some other cars have, those are 8mm bolts, but in this one it is Torx T20. Go ahead and just remove those. And from here, this whole bracket should slide right out. Just be careful not to scratch anything, and be careful you don't catch any of your cables. For all of the details on how to install the microphone and the GPS antenna and the other wiring, go check out the other video that I have linked right up here in the card, and I will also have linked in the description below. With all of our wiring ready, now all we have to do is hook everything up. So go through here and plug everything in. We have microphone, the antenna, the two USB extensions, the GPS antenna, and the main harness. Make sure to keep the HVAC controls clear so they can plug back in easily. And everything else we're just going to shove back in there. That looks like it's going to fit, so we'll take our T20 screws that came out of this originally. With this mounted, it's time to test fit the trim piece. Make sure that when you're doing these test fittings, you don't have the white clips installed on these tabs. They're fairly hard to remove once they're snapped in place. Looks like I'm pretty off-centered because of the way I dremeled out these little slots. We'll see if this can be adjusted easily side to side, so hopefully I don't have to go back and drill more out. We still want it to be able to raise up high enough to give that extra little bit of clearance that's necessary. This placement should be good enough. It's not perfect, but that screen is so big that it hides a multitude of sins. Even though we've already gone ahead and done some slight modifications to make this entire assembly sit up a bit higher than it was originally designed, you can see that the screw holes right here don't even come close to lining up. This is the factory hole, and I've gone ahead and already drilled these. Unfortunately, the hard plastic doesn't go very far down, so if you're not careful, what'll end up happening is you'll drill down a little bit and you'll just keep going through this soft plastic and foam, and there's nothing to bite on. So you actually have to drill somewhat at an upward angle to try and catch this hard plastic. And the same on the other side. And even with that done, you really have to manhandle this thing to get those screws in place. With the head unit all mounted up, it's time to go ahead and reinstall the HVAC bracket. The only thing that holds this in place is pressure from these screws down here, pressure from the front of the trim piece, and pressure from these plastic tabs. Because we've already had to go and cut off the excess plastic on here, it's ready to go in. Go ahead and reattach the connectors. And then this just kind of gets shoved in place, and it's pressure fit. Finally, we need to go ahead and mount this trim piece. There are the two white tabs, and they go and just clip onto these larger tabs. Put that in place. And try and get those to clip in. Again, because this was modified some to sit higher, this doesn't like to sit in all the way. But if you don't do that, then you can't attach this bottom bit. So, like I've said a couple of times, this Metra dash kit is a piece of crap. Unfortunately, there are no other options on the market. So if you have an E90 series BMW and you need a double-din dash kit, this is your one and only option. To add insult to injury, the screws that they give you for this are way too short to be able to bite into anything that resembles hard plastic. So I've gone ahead and gotten some larger screws. This just barely reaches the holes that I drilled in. It also isn't quite right laterally. Again, this is entirely the Metra dash kit. This has nothing to do with the head unit itself. If you have another car, this should be much, much easier if you have more and better dash kit options. That's all in place. The screen does tend to block this little LCD display. It's just a little bit big for this dash. As you can see, this is a fairly small dashboard, and there's just not a lot of vertical space here, as well as it's pretty sunken in, which is what's caused all of the headaches with this installation. The very last step of this process is to mount the screen, and this is really simple. There's an IDC ribbon cable here. I don't know if you can see, but there's a little key on there, and there's a little key on the display, so you can't get that wrong. These tabs just get pushed out. Gently center that and push it in place. And these two locking tabs will snap in. And push the ribbon cable back in. And there it is. With the screen installed, it's time to fire this thing up and check it out. Put the key in, turn on accessory, and it fires right up. If you had just hooked this thing up to power, then it would have to go through its full boot process. But it looks like when you hook power in the background, it does its normal boot up. So that way, when you first power the car on, or by the time you power the car on, it's in its standby mode and can fire up immediately. Just like on the previous generations, this is your main home screen. Down here, you've got your app drawer. As you can see, the interface is very snappy, and that screen looks wonderful. It's very bright, and actually, it's a little too bright at night, so I'm hoping that a firmware update will be able to expand the dimming range so it's not unpleasant during night driving, because right now it is a little bit blinding. Here's your phone dialer. Just like the previous version, it's pretty simple, easy to use, nothing too exciting. This is your equalizer and other audio settings. Just like before, this has that same DSP built in where you have graphic equalizer options, time delay options, your bass enhancement, your pan and fade, and crossover settings. Of course, we have to make sure that it actually plays music. So fire up YouTube Music here with some of that great copyright-free music. I know that the camera microphone doesn't do it any justice, but the improvement in sound quality is night and day compared to the factory BMW stereo. I'm going to be getting into more detail about the sound and all of the settings for it in my reviews, but right now I will say that this is a huge upgrade. That was the installation and a quick tour of the new Join 10.1-inch Android 10 head unit. I hope you found this interesting. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you'll get notified when I publish my full reviews. Tell me what you think of this head unit down in the comments below, and if you have any questions, I will do my best to answer them for you. I'll see you guys in the next video.